Could everyone please be seated?
General Gill, General Daly, distinguished guests. On behalf of the United States Air Force, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to Tuktoyaktuk for the formal closure of the DewLine. We are gathered today to commemorate a very historic occasion, a rich chapter in the long history of mutual cooperation between our great nations. This ceremony, although modest, serves many purposes. It signifies the formal closure of the DewLine. It establishes the North Warning System as the sole surveillance system to protect North America from unauthorized airborne intrusion. And it formalizes transfer of control of United States Air Force managed sites to the Canadian Department of National Defense. These are all important events, and any one taken singly would warrant our gathering here today. However, as you listen to both General Gill and General Daly, you will naturally reflect on their remarks during the more solemn parts of the ceremony. During this time, as you listen to our national anthems, please reflect on the pioneers, both military and civilian, those thousands of hardy souls who braved the remote and hostile conditions of the Arctic nearly 40 years ago to construct the DewLine, and who have endured so successfully throughout its remarkable history. For it is really their efforts, their dedication, and their sacrifice that we are honoring today. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first guest speaker, representing the Commander-in-Chief of North American Aerospace Defense Command and the United States Air Force, Brigadier General Timothy Gill, Director of Plans, North American Aerospace Defense Command.
Thank you, Gordy. General Daly, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it really is a pleasure for me to represent the U.S. and NORAD at this DewLine commemoration. This is my first time in the Arctic. I've been over much of the world, but normally I've been traveling east and west, and it was rather amazing to me how far north we have really come on the flight. In fact, last night I was rather tired, but thankfully I was able to get sufficient rest because I went to bed before the sun set, and by the time I got up the next morning, the sun was already well up. So I know I had a nice long sleep. Only by being here in the Arctic does it give me a true appreciation of what all the people have done in regards to building and maintaining the DewLine. It was quite an effort. Just a few statistics in my research impressed me considerably. 500,000 tons of construction materials and equipment were used. 10 million cubic yards of gravel, which is enough to build a road 18 feet wide from Vancouver to Halifax. 25,000 people in the construction, and completed in this harsh environment in just a little over 2 years. I wonder if we could do that again today. It cost about $350 million. However, all of us here today know that effort and the cost was well worth the price. Not only because of the contributions the DewLine has made to the NORAD mission, but also because of the contribution to building and continuing the close relationships between Canada and the United States. For over 35 years, the DewLine has played an important role in helping NORAD accomplish its mission to watch, warn, and respond to threats on North America. The DewLine, in essence, has been our first line of defense against air-breeding attacks or threats, and as such has been a key aspect of the entire deterrence capability. The warning the DewLine provided would have given commanders of the national command authorities of both our countries the opportunity and time to make critical decisions should such an attack have occurred. NORAD played a continued role even as the threat evolved. went from a pure bomber threat to an ICBM threat, and then to an bomber threat with cruise missiles, where all three were players. And of course, NORAD continued doing its vital mission through the use of DewLine. Even as the post-Soviet era emerges, we continue to evolve in how we are doing our business. We will be using the North Warning System in replacement for the DewLine, and that will give us added capability, but because of the change in the threat, we're looking at ways to perhaps do that differently and maybe not as continuously in order to reduce day-to-day costs, but always keeping an eye on the essential capability that may be needed should the world situation change. We certainly have changed in the equipment we've used. At one point we had, somewhere in the late 50s I believe, we had 400 radars arrayed with almost 5,000 fighters available to do the mission. Today we're looking at about 100 radars and somewhere in the vicinity of 500 fighters total. Along with the key contributions to NORAD's mission, DewLine has been a symbol of this unique relationship between our two countries. The agreement that was forged in '55 to build the DewLine, in fact, led to the establishment of NORAD a couple of years later. And the bond remains strong today and will endure thanks to the efforts of all that participated over all these years. As I conclude, I'd like to recognize two organizations that have made such important contributions over the years. First, ITT Federal Services Corporation, who's been the DewLine contractor for all but 3 of those 30-odd years. And second, the 4700th Operations Support Squadron, who monitored the DewLine contract for the years it was in operation. Last but most importantly, it's important to recognize the thousands of men and women from both countries, both military and civilian, who spend countless hours at remote locations monitoring scopes, building and maintaining facilities so that this could be possible. To all of them I say you have the heartfelt thanks of the United States and Canada for your sacrifice and for your service. And on behalf of NORAD, I'd like to say well done. Thank you.
Thank you, General Gill. I now have the honor to introduce our second guest speaker, representing Canadian Forces Northern Area and the Canadian Air Force, Brigadier General R. Dwayne Daly, Commander, Canadian Forces Northern Area. General Daly.
Thank you, Colonel Broad, General Gill. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as the Commander of Canadian Forces Northern Area, it is a significant pleasure for me to be here today. This is a very notable occasion. This afternoon's ceremony here at Bar 3 in Tuktoyaktuk, now a short-range radar site of the North Warning System, is significant for Northerners from Alaska through the Yukon and Northwest Territories to Labrador, indeed for all Canadians and Americans, as it marks the close of a chapter in the defense of North America and in the sovereignty of Canadian and American airspace. General Gill has just provided us with a very comprehensive sense of what the DewLine was all about. The story that became the DewLine began exactly 36 years ago, when this line of early warning radar sites became operational in 1957. 36 years, as any veteran of the armed forces will attest, is a very long period of time in which to make your commitment to your country and to the defense of our nations. But it's precisely that accomplishment which bears recognition as we acknowledge the passing of the DewLine into the history books. As one who has flown over the Arctic many times, the DewLine seems to me to have become both a physical and a symbolic fixture, a defensive creation that was born from the security demands of a different era. Once conceived, its mission was to maintain continuous surveillance across the Arctic approaches to North America and to instantly relay warning of the approach of any hostile aircraft to our joint North American Air Defense Command headquarters in Colorado Springs. In this regard, it has been tested many times. Those challenges, however, were repeatedly and successfully countered thanks to the early warning information provided by the DewLine. The professionalism and commitment of the Canadian and American personnel that manned its sites, and the combined Canadian and American air and ground-based personnel of NORAD at bases throughout North America. Times change, however, and so does technology. With the recognition by our two nations that the DewLine was becoming obsolete in the face of a changing, more sophisticated threat, came the agreement of March 18, 1985, for the North American Air Defense Modernization Project, of which the North Warning System today is a principal component. The North Warning System, as many of you are aware, has already begun to take up duty as an enhanced radar warning net across the top of North America. And with its predecessor, the North Warning System will stand as a sentinel for North America for many years to come. Interestingly and appropriate enough, a number of its sites and are former DewLine facilities that have been retained and upgraded to serve in the new system. The North Warning System, then, marks a new chapter in the defense posture of North America. Its radar sites will continue as landmarks throughout Alaska and Canada, and so provide a familiar presence in and near communities throughout the Arctic. This presence has been, and I trust, will continue to be of benefit to Northerners, and is one that we are all working to foster and improve. For my part, I note with satisfaction that Canadian Rangers within my command have recently begun to undertake security patrols at a number of these sites. For North Americans far away from our winter chills, and yes, the summer onslaught of insects, the North Warning System will be seen as a necessary and reassuring means of protecting our sovereignty and the defense of North America in an uncertain geopolitical climate. And Canadians can also take particular pride in noting that they are playing a much greater role in this new system, fully responsible as we are for its operation and maintenance. As we mark this occasion, then, Canadians and Americans, civilian and military, we are closing together the final chapter on the distant early warning line. Its retirement is a well-earned one, and the success in the performance of its mission over 36 years remains unquestioned. That fact, as well as the realization that the DewLine's concept carries on, is the mark of its significant contribution to North American defense. I join with General Gill, then, in commending all those that contribute to its success and salute them for a job well done. Thank you very much.
Sound retreat.
Will everyone please be seated?
Stand at ease, please. At this time, I'd like to ask Colonel Chester Muse to join me at the table to sign the documents, formally turning over the DewLine sites to the Canadian Air Force. Colonel Muse.
Please rise for the playing of the Canadian National Anthem. Will all please remain standing for the departure of the official party?
I'm Colonel Gordy Brault, the commander of the 4700 Operations Support Squadron out of Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, Air Combat Command, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you all here. The first question I had, does everyone have a seat? Okay, we're all set. Before we go on with the program, please be seated. I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank all of you who attended today's commemoration ceremony. And in the discussions that I've heard since, I believe it was a consensus that it was an extremely solemn occasion, and that everyone appreciated it. And I think that we did the DewLine honor today in having that ceremony. I'd like to take this time to introduce our guests here tonight. And I'm not going to name everybody, but we're going to come very close. And so if you'll bear with us, and when I do call your name, if you would stay standing until you see the flash go off. I believe you're going to be saved for posterity. First of all, I'd like to introduce our head table. At my far left, the DewLine program manager and the individual responsible for putting on much of this operation, Major Max Schaefer. To my far right, Mr. Ken Drolet, the manager for PM NATM. By the way, when we set this up, we didn't realize it would be going back and forth. This is a test. To my left, Mr. Wyval Sartain, program manager for the DewLine from ITT. To my right, Colonel Bob Johnson, ESC-TN Bob is the program manager for the North Warning System. To my left, Mr. Eddie Dillon, the mayor of Tuktoyaktuk. Moving back to my right, Colonel Ron Winter from the office, from Headquarters Air Force, Plans. To my left, Colonel John Swift, U.S. Army, Office of the Secretary of Defense, and John's portfolio includes the North Warning System and the DewLine. To my right, the Honorable Nellie Conway, Government Leader, Northwest Territories, and Madam Premier. And to my left, Brigadier General Dwayne Daly, Commander, Canadian Forces, Northern Area. To my right, Brigadier General Timothy Gill, Director of Plans, Headquarters, North American Aerospace Defense Command. And sitting next to him, Colonel Chester Muse, Director of the North Warning System Office from Ottawa. The list goes on. And I hope you don't mind this. You know, this group of folks, we've been together now for going on to a day and a half. Most people are fairly tired. And we didn't have name tags, and people have been bumping into each other for the last day and a half. And I think it's good that we get to know each other and put the face with the body and the title, and to try to recognize the contributions that the individuals have made, the many individuals that are here over these many, many years of the DewLine's history. First of all, Mr. Cameron Clement, Director of the Mackenzie Weston Arctic Operations. Mr. Roger Grubin, Chairman of the IRC. Mr. Gerald Smoliak, ITT Operations Manager for Canada. Colonel John Mogi, Headquarters Air Combat Command, Director of Environmental Programs. Miss Linda Chartier, 4400 Contracting Squadron, Langley Air Force Base, the DewLine Contracting Officer. That's where the money comes from. Mr. Roy Farmer, 4700 Operations Support Squadron, Director of Program Management. Mr. Thomas Nickel, Chief, Atmospheric Monitoring Systems. Mr. Jim Marable, 4700 Operations Support Squadron, Director of Program Support. Lieutenant Colonel Dennis Shaw, Air Combat Command Judge Advocate. He's our contracting legal advisor. He'll keep us all out of jail, hopefully. Lieutenant Colonel William Klaus, 4700 Operations Squadron. He is our detachment commander in Ottawa. Lieutenant Colonel Gregory Spilker, Commander, 4400 Contracting Squadron. Miss Rosemary Kuptana, President, ITC, Inuit. I'm sorry? Parasat of Canada. I'm sorry. Rosemary. Other introductions from the audience now. Mr. Alan Jones, Manager, Indian Affairs and Northern Development. And Alan's been connected with this for many, many years. Mrs. Carol Fritsch from Air Mobility Command in St. Louis, Missouri. And Carol has been working our contract for airlift support up here for many, many years. Miss Doris Gagney, Air Charter Service, is Carol's counterpart in Canada. And probably the most popular man this afternoon, Sergeant Ron Neer from the RCMP. Is there anyone here who did not have their picture taken with Ron today? You still have some film left? Okay. I'd like to take this time to introduce the 6 station managers that we have here for the 6 remaining DewLine sites that are open. Now, we started closing the DewLine down about 3 years ago, and there's a seniority system that's utilized. And as the sites closed down, many of our senior managers moved to the sites that remained open, to where we stand today with the last 6 sites and with some of the most the deepest experience level that we've probably ever had in managing the sites in the history of the DewLine. I'd like to call your names, and please all stand, and let's hold our applause until all are standing. First, Mr. Jim Bodina from Pin 1, 30 years of service. Ian Frazier, site manager at Pin 2, over 27 years. George Morris, Bar 3, over 29 years. John Sheldon, Pin 4, 30 years plus. Rick Stevens, Bar 1, 23 years. And Carl Van Buren, Bar 4, 18 years. And the reason that Carl is a little bit lower on the totem pole is he has a twin brother and they kind of rotate. Okay? I think so.
Colonel Broll.
Oh, Stan, just what? I'm sorry. Thank you. I'd like now to mention just a couple of more people, and then we'll move on and start our toast. I know folks are getting thirsty. First of all, I'd like to introduce our Deputy Manager for Canadian Operations, Fred Colson, who has been on the DewLine for 33 years, helped unload the first trains that come up. And Mr. James Darcy, station mechanic, 33 years plus. And lastly, we have 3 honored guests here tonight, 3 natives from the northern area who've been with the company for many, many years. First of all, Mr. Laughingwell Shingatuk, over 31 years, heavy equipment operator. Joe Curley, heavy equipment operator, over 25 years. And Ambrose Akdavigac, heavy equipment operator, 32 years plus. And have I forgotten someone? I'm sorry. Russell Lumart, would you please stand? Deputy Mayor of Tuktuk. Stan?
Colonel Broll, I would like to propose a toast to the President.
Please charge your glasses. To the President.
To the President.
Colonel Broll, a toast to the Queen of Canada.
To the Queen.
Colonel Broll, I'd like to make a toast to all our honored guests.
Hear, hear. Sergeant Kennedy.
Please let us pray. We thank you, Lord, for your faithfulness and your love. We are all thankful for your goodness and for your health and the strengths to enable us to travel in safety to this memorable commemorative ceremony. With your blessing. Lord, hear this prayer and bless the men and women who have shouldered the burden of the watchful vigilance on the DewLine for so many years. Let there be peace among nations, peace in our lands, peace in our homes, and peace in our hearts. A special prayer, Lord, for those who are sick. Bless them. Heal them with your grace. Bless us, O Lord, as we sit together sharing in food and gifts of this festive occasion. Bless us in the Lord's name. Amen.
Dinner is served. Watch Hannah, our head chef. Peter Foley and Brad Horvath. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Everything was okay.
It was wonderful. Before we move into the presentations, I'd like to recognize some other individuals. And these are the people from ITT and the 4700 that have worked so hard over the past months to make this event possible. From ITT, I'd like to personally thank Roger Shefke. Roger, would you stand up? Gary Boken. And Wayne Johnston. From the 4700, I'd like to have Luke LaBelle stand up, please. Captain LaBelle, Marcel Kennedy, Max Schaefer, and the many, many others who made this happen. I want to thank you all very, very much. And at this time, I'd like to begin our presentation program, and I'd like to turn the floor over to the program manager for the DewLine from ITT, Mr. Weibel Sartain. Weibel?
Thank you very much, Colonel Baralt. I'd like to join the Colonel in welcoming all of our visitors this evening, and we're delighted to have you here, delighted that you could join us. I had a lot of prepared remarks this evening. It was going to amount to about 5 minutes. Colonel Baralt on the flight up asked me to see what I was going to say so that he could measure his remarks, and he gave my speech. So I took about 10 minutes, and now I have an hour. Seriously, though, there are a lot of people who made all of this possible, and there's one person that hasn't been thanked properly at this point, and that is our station supervisor here at Bar 3, George Morris. Yeah. George, stand up, George. George, you're taller when you stand up there. George and his troops here at the site have done one heck of a job, and we certainly appreciate that, George. Thank you very much. Colonel Baralt introduced all of my distinguished guests that I brought to the site. So I have a couple that I'd like to introduce that were not brought out, and that is some of the people, again, that helped make this thing happen. Mr. Jerry Francis from Winnipeg, who made sure all of the dishes, forks, knives, spoons, drinks, food got on the plane and got here. Jerry, where are you?
Here, Jerry.
Thank you. And then some of the DewLiners who have a number of years' experience, you heard from most of them, but I'd like to recognize my senior staff from Hampton, Virginia. Mr. Gary Boken, who has 19 years with the DewLine. Thank you very much, Gary. Would you stand up, please? Wayne Jonason, who did all of the craftsman work out, had the flagpoles, the parade stand and everything built. Wayne, thank you very much. Wayne has 18 years with the DewLine. Tony Hendrickson, where's Tony? Boy, I think bites. Okay. Tony has been with the DewLine for 21 years. Manager of Com Electronics. Thank you very much, Tony. Ike Clausen, who lives on the DewLine over at Cambridge Bay. Ike's been with the company for 23 years. Thank you, Ike. And you've heard about our male master banquet manager, Mr. Roger Shefty. Roger's been with the company for 15 years. Roger, thank you very much. And last but not least, my good friend Eddie Dillon has about 3 months on the DewLine, but in actual employment with the company. But he has more than 20 years living on the DewLine because Eddie's parents worked for us for a number of years. His father was an employee of ours for over 20 years. Eddie, thank you very much, and your parents. Thank you. And let me tell you something. You what, Roger? Send him back. Send him back. Okay. Let me tell you, though, the people that Colonel Brault introduced earlier, the station supervisors and our special guests from the north, the people who have been employed for over 30 years, ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed 470 years of DewLine experience in this room alone. And I think that is a major accomplishment. It's something that ITT is very proud of. We're very privileged to have been part of the DewLine for more than 30 years. As a private industry, it is unheard of that we could be part of the national defense of the North American continent and provide the services that we've been able to provide. And for that, we're very grateful to the Air Force, to our employees, and to all of those great people that we call DewLiners. Thank you very much. All of those great DewLiners encompass a lot of people, and we have one of them with us this evening, and he has requested a special moment with us. Ambrose, where are you? The floor is yours, sir. Colonel, you want to stand up? Here.
Oh yeah, you talk, Ambrose. Go ahead.
I don't know how to talk.
Okay, sure you do, Ambrose. Come on.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh. I'm going to give you something in the Hapun and Ulu.
One for
Colonel
Brault and one for Monset. There we go.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you didn't sharpen it.
You did. You got it.
Yeah. Another one here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to add that I've been told that Ambrose personally made these with his own hands, and Ambrose, that makes them very much more special, and we're very delighted, and thank you for your long and continuous service with the DewLine. At this point, I have two special presentations that I'd like to make. If I could get Colonel Spilker and Colonel Brault to stand, please. Colonel Spilker, would you come over and join me? We have built from kind of a montage of DewLine history that we would like to present to both you and Colonel Brault, signifying our participation and kind of the evolution of the DewLine over the many years of its life. If you'll look at the picture that you have here, you'll see, for those of us who can't, of course, the air defense and the support, the sites itself and the DewLine, along with the Canadian-U.S. corporation, which has been most beneficial over the years, and is a real partnership that cannot be denied, and it will not be denied in the future with the North Warning System, I'm certain. But more importantly, I'd like to point out that in the very corner here we have the initial copy of the initial plaque that was awarded to ITT back in 1957 when the DewLine was commissioned. And ITT, as you know, was the original contractor of the DewLine, and we're very proud of that reputation that we have built over the years. And then in the clipping, there's a little news clipping in the corner that also announces the award of the DewLine contract back in the early years. We got to keep promoting IT. In the center, which you'll receive in a few minutes, we have the commemorative emblem that we've built a pin for it, we've built cups for it, and we'll be delighted to present those to you, all of you, in just a few minutes. But that's kind of the center of this motif, with a DewLine site in the center, and of course the natural things of the north, the polar bear, the caribou, and all. So Colonel Brault and Colonel Spilker, it's a great pleasure on behalf of ITT to present these to each of your squadrons on behalf of our very much appreciation for the support that you have given us over the years, and as a remembrance that, hey, the greatest company that you can get is ITT. Colonel Brault told me I couldn't have any commercials, but the hell, this is my site, right?
Stand right there, last.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
You can't use that thing tomorrow.
No, this won't work on Char.
We might be able to use it at the falls.
At this time, we've had the two presentations that we're delighted to make to our customer, and our customer is number one and foremost important to us. Next to our mission. Mission comes first in all of the adventures that ITT endeavors in, and to get to that mission, it takes a lot of people and a lot of support, and a lot of people like you, not whether you're involved directly or indirectly in the DewLine operation. So we would like to give you a little bit of a remembrance and something special that, in cooperation with Colonel Brault's office, Colonel Spilker, and especially with the divine guidance of our contracting officer, Linda Chartier, we've come up with a special commemorative pin that we would like to present to each of you, and a little mug that you can take home. You can drink out of it if you dare, but you can put it on your mantle and appreciate it a lot more. Roger, would you bring those out, please? Isn't this dramatic? I can assure you there's a lot of work went into the design of this cup.
It's really beautiful.
How we doing? All set? Everyone have a cup and a pen. I hope you take those home and remember with the same fondness that we of ITT have of the DewLine, that it was a major contribution to the national defense for over 30 years. It is something that did not just happen. It was made to happen by a lot of dedicated people. It is part of history. You here this evening are part of that history, and I hope you appreciate that and forever remember that the DewLiners are a great group of people, both Northerners and Southerners. And it's interesting to note, Colonel Brault threw out a few statistics earlier, that over the last 30-odd years, ITT, through the DewLine, in current day dollars, has contributed over $2 billion to the Canadian economy through our payroll. I think that is very significant. All of those dollars, as far as I know, stayed in Ian Fraser's bank account. But you know, it has been a major industry in the North, and I trust that it has been beneficial and made everything worthwhile. We do have a few people that Colonel recognized, some of them earlier, but our Premier Nellie Conway. Nellie, are you still here? Oh, there you are. Nellie, I would very much appreciate if you would do us the honor of accepting the flower arrangement in front of you to take home as a remembrance of what happened here this evening. Where's Winnie Grubin? Winnie, would you take the one in front of you, please? Okay. Lucy Dillon? You know, all too often we fail to recognize the ladies who make all of us men very strong and very professional in our appearance and what we do. And we should recognize them more often. Thank you. And I believe we have one significant other. Rosemary, where are you? Rosemary, would you also take one? Thank you very much for coming and joining us this evening. And Eddie, there are 4 remaining centerpieces that I would ask that you would take to your elders' home or wherever your choice to distribute that might bring some joy and pleasure to the people of Tuktoyaktuk. If you would take the remaining 4, we would be most appreciative. Thank you very much. We're delighted you could come and join us. I hope you have an enjoyable evening. I'm going to say the best is yet to come, but that's not true. But we hope you do enjoy it, and thank you very much. We're delighted to have you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wyville. I'm sure that everyone here is going to treasure those mugs. Already they are collector's items, even as you look at them, and they're really, really gorgeous work of art. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Tom Nickel to come forward, who I believe has a presentation. Tom?
Thank you very much. Madam Premier, General Daly, General Gill, Colonel Bro, honored guests. I've had no personal involvement with the DewLine and only recently have taken on a limited role as management of the meteorological inspection program. 2 others with much more involvement wish they would have been able to come here. Brian O'Donnell, who's Director General of Western Region of the Atmospheric Environment Service, had to be in Ottawa this week. And John Panis, who was superintendent of the inspectors for a good number of years, had a hip operation only a short time ago and was unable to travel. I'm very honored to be a part of this historic occasion and representing them as well. And I'm very pleased to represent the Atmospheric Environment Service. Much of my information about the DewLine comes from Lauren Merton, who was an AES meteorological inspector here on the DewLine for about 5 years in the early 60s. He has also been a primary contact between the meteorological observers on the DewLine and the Atmospheric Environment Service for most of the years since then. And I'm very pleased that Lauren was able to come with me to attend this gathering. I recently was in southern France for a meeting and took the opportunity to visit some historic sites. One, very much a tourist trap, if I can call it that, was a walled village called Carcassonne, which dates back over 2,000 years. I spent some time walking on and around the walls of the village, musing about the different types of architecture that you could actually see within the walls. The early portion of the wall dated back to Roman times, where fist-sized rocks and clay had been used to build the wall. As technology changed, cut blocks became the vogue, and they became larger and larger as the walls were continually added to. I found myself thinking not about the structure itself, but about the tremendous effort, the heartbreak, and the camaraderie that must have been there during the construction. I think the DewLine project and its sites are a similar case. While these sites are not likely going to receive the same tourist traffic that Carcassonne has, and like an old castle, The effort, coordination, and cooperation that was required for this successful venture is truly awesome. The men and women involved must be complimented in a job well done. The Atmospheric Environment Service was primarily a role in weather support, obviously. Our role was insisting in the training and certification of the of the individuals to take weather observations, maintenance of the weather equipment, and providing forecasts. And all of these activities have occupied many hours of many individuals. The raditions, as I've called, or console operators, as I've been told, who as secondary duties took the weather observations, provided an invaluable service and information to the continuing operation of the DewLine. In the years since the first OBS, meteorology has advanced. The technology and the requirement for accurate observations has continued. This information, specifically from the northern sites, has helped to confirm the global interconnection of weather systems. As with most fields, weather forecasting has become more automated. Larger and better computers do better numerical modeling of the atmosphere, but the accuracy of the resulting forecast depends very much on the global models and, most importantly, on the ability to acquire and ingest the data globally. Data from the polar region has been crucial in this process. Scientists, I hesitate to use the general population because they always downplay on the weather forecast itself, but I think people all around the world, not only Canada, the United States, but throughout the Northern Hemisphere, applaud the work that was done through the DewLine. As a symbol of the tremendous effort and the cooperation of this project, I would like to present 3 plaques. One to the DewLine Systems Office, or 4700 Operations Support Squadron. One to the Canadian Forces Liaison Officer, who was our prime contact for probably 99% of our interaction with the DewLine, and one to ITT for their service to our individuals. If I could call on Colonel Brault and Captain LaBelle and Mr. Sartain to come forward, please. Colonel?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your support.
Captain LaBelle still having dessert.
Captain LaBelle is the Canadian Forces Liaison Officer. Again, thank you very much. And
Thank you very much, Tom. At this time, I'd like to call Mayor Eddie Dillon to come forward, please.
Thank you, Colonel Brault, Mr. Sartain, distinguished guests and visitors to the community. Thank you for inviting us to this last occasion in terms of the closing ceremonies of the DewLine system. I understand that Jim Bodina and George Morris are leaving on holidays at the same time, so that they've made a purchase of a vehicle in Inuvik. They, knowing Jim and George for a number of years, I know that they like to skimp for whatever they buy, and they approached the dealership in Inuvik, and he said, "There's only one problem with the vehicle that you're buying. It has no reverse." So Jim and George looked at each other and they said, "That's okay. We don't plan to come back." But to the individuals that have had the long-term service, we'd like to just congratulate you on the length and the terms that you've had. I've shared many of years with both John Sheldon, Jim Bodina, and with George Morris on different sites, so it's going to be sad with not seeing them around down the road, but I've talked to John. He's planning to come back sometime visiting. Hopefully that everybody else does, but I don't think that they'll leave the country, but they won't forget where they've worked and where they've lived for a number of years. I just like to take the hat off of Mayor and present to Colonel Brault a presentation from Frank Hansen, of the chairman of the Northern Transportation Company, who couldn't make it tonight and sends his apologies. But on their behalf, I'd like to make a presentation to you, Colonel. To the Department of the Air Force, 4700th Operations Support Squadron, to commemorate our long-standing association in support of the DewLine Pacer Max Sea Lift, June 15, 1993, and this comes from the Northern Transportation Company Limited. So, Colonel Brault, on behalf of the Northern Transportation Board of Directors and Chairman.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. That's okay, I got one wrong.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Jim Marable, would you stand up? Where's Jim? Would you come up and take the plaque, please? I'm going to present this plaque right here to Jim Marable because this basically is based on transportation and bringing the goods up to the DewLine every year, and that wouldn't have happened for many, many years without the work of this man, Mr. Jim Marable, and I'll have him take it back and hang it in his area. I guess, is that all the presentos? Does anyone else have is everyone in a gift-giving mood?
No room in your baggage either.
Marcel, could you bring in the first award? General Gill, could you come forward, please? We'd like at this time to take this opportunity to thank General Gill for representing St. NORAD and the United States Air Force in our commemorating closing ceremony this afternoon. His remarks were wonderful, and we'd like you to take this back to NORAD, General Gill. I don't know if you can... I'm not sure if that'll go to the Calgary Stampede or not. But it reads to Headquarters NORAD, and he took it away, so I can't finish the reading here. But it's pretty in commemoration of the distant early warning line, DewLine Bar 3, Tuktoyaktuk, Northwest Territories, Canada, 15 July 1993. And that flag has flown over Tuk today.
Great. Thank you.
And there is a twin otter that's heading south, General Daly. And we're gonna probably overgross it. Marcel, would you please bring the next one in? I'd like to present the next plaque, which is a matching twin to the one we gave General Gill, for General Daly for his efforts today and for his contribution in today's closing ceremony as a representative of the Canadian Air Force. General Daly.
Why don't you take that?
Yes, I sure would.
Well, what a pleasure it is for me to be able to say thank you to Gordon, all of you who have made today's closing ceremony such a significant, memorable occasion in the history of the relationships of our two countries, and in particular our two air forces. Madam Premier, it's a real joy to see you here tonight, and Your Worship, very pleased that you are here to partake of the ceremony as well. This has been a most notable occasion, and I think that the pin that most of us are wearing today, the Canadian and American flag, represents a relationship that has been symbolized in no mean way by the relationship that has existed for so many years in the development and the operation of the DewLine. I must say it is a real pleasure for me to be able to partake of this type of a ceremony in which not only country to country, but Air Force to Air Force, we have had so much to share. I don't think I want to leave the table. I know that it's almost been like Christmas for Gordy tonight, but there are a couple of presentations that I would like to make as well. To Gord, thank you very much for everything that you've done for us in the last day. The ceremony has been one of marked significance. Thank you very much for inviting us and making us very much a part of it.
Thank you, sir.
General Gill, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and certainly a pleasure to have met you in a place like Tuktoyaktuk. I certainly look forward to meeting you again, and certainly to let you enjoy the benefits of Yellowknife as well. All the best.
Could you hold off just a little bit on that? I'm not sure who we're going to give that next one to. Would you hold off a minute, Marcel? Before I present the last plaque, I'd like to say a few words. First of all, I'd like to thank again General Gill and General Daly for performing today at our ceremony and for coming and representing our great nations at the closure ceremony. I'd like to thank Madam Chairman for coming tonight, or Madam Premier, and Roger. It was really a pleasure to meet you after talking to you on the phone all these years, and hope that we get to see you again in the future. And Mr. Mayor, you, all of our distinguished guests, it really has been a wonderful, wonderful day. Today, after the ceremony was over, a reporter grabbed me for a little interview, and we'd been trying to pump each other up as to what will we say if the press asks this and what will we say if the press asks that. And the question that I was asked by the reporter right off the get-go was, well, how was the DewLine? Was it worth it? And I hadn't really expected that question. And my answer came very quickly. I said, yes, it was worth it. Many people think that we've spent millions and millions of dollars all these years up here for a system which never had to be used. That's the key. That was the real key of the DewLine. When the DewLine was built, Dwight Eisenhower was President of the United States. And for those of you that remember and used to go to the movies and see the Saturday afternoon cartoons or whatever, the picture show would go up and it would show the red paint coming down the globe as that great behemoth that's not too far from us was growing and growing and growing. And so in just a few short years, this entire line was built. And that line held off an atmospheric threat against North America from 1957 until this afternoon. And it's being replaced now by the new, modern, upgraded North Warning System. As long as Ivan the planner goes to work in the morning and says, if we're going to attack North America, it's not going to be with aircraft first, because the DewLine was there. Or if something should happen in the next year or two, which could very easily happen, if you look back at how the world has changed in 2 years, believe me, it would not take very much to turn the world back to what it was just a couple of years ago. We've got the North Warning System there. And again, Ivan the planner is going to say, not with airplanes first. We all know that ballistic missiles are the way that we would be attacked if something like that happened. But if we didn't have the DewLine, if we didn't have the North Warning System, we would be handing any potential adversary the quickest, easiest, and surest route to get to a target. And for the money that's been invested in the DewLine, we more than have reaped the benefits in the victory that we've seen in the Cold War. And I believe that we can reap the benefits in the North Warning System in the future, should that threat ever change. The DewLine came into being 2 years before NORAD. And we celebrate NORAD quite often as a great cooperative effort militarily across the borders between our two nations. But I think we should remember that NORAD came about because of the DewLine. Had the DewLine not been built and driven our militaries together in a close cooperative relationship for strategic air defense, I don't believe we would have had a NORAD agreement. And from that came the relationship in NORAD, from that came the alert sites and the relationships that we have today, which will go on and on and on as we continue to grow each new NORAD agreement. And finally, I guess what I'd just like to say, and I'm going to get a little bit offline here, but we've got a contracting officer here, we've got the commander of the contracting squadron, and our lawyer. So if I get too far off track, you can help me out. Before I get into that, I'd like to read a greeting that came to me in the mail just the other day. Men and women of the DewLine, there are many reasons why the Berlin Wall came down and the Soviet Union is no longer a threat to the free world. One that is often cited is Strategic Air Command alert aircraft and missiles. The other key reason is just as often overlooked. That is the men and women who manned the distant early warning system at the top of the world, 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle. congratulations on a job well done, and heartfelt thanks for your personal sacrifices in accomplishing the mission. Now, I'd like to say that was signed by the President or by the Chief. This was sent by one of our old QAEs, and I think it means much more than that, because I think this represents the feeling of many, many people far advanced in years and experience in the QAE, but I don't think anyone could have captured it any better. And it was sent to us just the other day by Captain Ulrich Peterson, who was a recent QAE up here. And we spoke just recently last night with some of the site supervisors. I think that he was one of the tops. And I don't think that we can add too much to the words that Ulrich has said as far as the benefits and the significance of the DewLine. The last thing I want to talk about, and that's when I was mentioning the lawyers and the contracting officers, is the relationship that the Air Force has had with ITT. I'm always told by my CO and by the JAG, now don't compliment a company too much, because that'll come back to haunt you in the future. 3 years ago, or a little more than 3 years ago, when we knew we were going to close the DewLine down, we had some meetings down in Hampton, Virginia, between the Air Force and between the company. And at those meetings we said, we've got some big problems coming up. We're going to close down the DewLine. We know we're closing it down. We know that the money's not there to keep it open. We're going to have to close it down early and bring it down sooner than we would have, because the North Warning System was delayed a couple of years in coming up on board. And we said, how are we going to handle this? We're going to have terrible, terrible morale problems. We're going to have all of our old heads, the people that really make the system work, are going to depart the fix. They're going to leave the line. They're going to throw it away. The data is going to dry up that we're sending down in North Bay. The facilities are going to go to hell in a handbasket. How are we going to be able to handle this? You know, this is going to be big, big trouble. And we sat around, we said, well, we're just going to have to press on and take the chips as they fall and see what happens. You know what happened. The old heads didn't jump out. They stayed here to the right to the end. The data never missed a heartbeat. The in-commission rate stayed above 99% for the entire time we were drawing down the DewLine. And the facilities are as good or better than they were 3 years ago. I take my hat off and salute ITT for that marvelous job. I salute the men and women of ITT sitting here tonight, and the hundreds and hundreds of men and women in ITT who are still across the line that kept that going. And also the hundreds of men and women from ITT who have already driven south as we close down the Fox sector and the Camp sector. It's been a pleasure from an Air Force perspective to work with a bunch of pros like you. We take our hats off to you. We tip our hats to you. And Marcel, could you bring the last black? Weibel? We'd like to present the last flag flown at Tuck from the 4700.
I'd like to ask Jerry Smolak, our Canadian Operations Manager, to join me. And I'd ask all DewLiners present to please stand. This is for you. I accept it on behalf of you. Thank you so much, Colonel.
You bet.
We have maybe one more.
However you want it.
Have one on the other side.
Okay. Where you want?
Of you on this side over here. Can you back it?
They get it?
I'll let him go first. Go ahead.
Okay, the true DewLiner, give me a smile.
Wait a minute. Get one more coming here.
Colonel, thank you very much. Very kind. And the greatest compliment of all, the contracting officer took a picture.
Would you all please charge your glasses? Would you all please charge your glasses? I'd like to present a toast. Please rise. This toast is to the thousands of men and women of the DewLine, both past and present, for the superlative job that they've done in the defense of the United States and Canada over these many 37 years. To the men and women of the DewLine. Hear, hear. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the formal portion of our dinner. Please enjoy yourselves.
Just an excellent evening. And
Well done.